The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. More positive tidbits continue to percolate about the Oklahoma Sooners, and that's why I continue to have to talk about those Oklahoma Sooners, much to the chagrin of all their hated rivals out there. It seems like Oklahoma's schedule might set up to where they might have a TCU-like run this year. We're also going to talk about the fact that they have this really intelligent NIL plan set up by Joe Castiglione and Brent Venables, who continue to show why they do not rest on their laurels. And the word genuine and unique keeps popping up about these guys. Let's talk about it. Before we get to the show today, I got a prayer request from Mike Wilkerson, as his cousin of 54 years old suddenly passed away. So keep Mike Wilkerson and his family in your prayers. Also, had a person complain about me doing these prayer requests. They said it took me 5 minutes to do them, and as you just seen, it only took me about 10 or 15 seconds. So, some people just like to be a curmudgeon, and ironically, not to name any names, but Mike Happy, your last name don't really fit your personality, brother. But getting right to it here, this is the Outlaw of College Football, and here they come riding in. Once again, it's the Outlaw Posse in effect. And today's four horsemen shout-outs go to Alpha Dragon Gaming FTW, Butch Kaufman, Hank, and Zach Hamner are saddled up. They're mounted up. They're ready to go. They've got their badges. They've been deputized. And they're going to help me with today's college football invasion. And if you want your badge and you want to be deputized, all you got to do is hit that join button next to the subscribe button. And we're going to have some more perks coming down the road. I thought of one the other day. If you have a badge and you're in the Outlaw Posse and you make a comment on some of my videos, I will decide on a badge comment of the day. We're going to probably call it the deputy input of the day. Now, I can also be reached on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it here. I was looking at Oklahoma's schedule. It sets up rather nicely. Now, it set up rather nicely last year, but we all know that they was in the middle of a big transition and a lot of turmoil that went on during the offseason with the situation that took place. But this year, they've got their feet wet. They're a little more entrenched, and Brent Venables is getting his program installed. And with that, they start out with Arkansas State this weekend. Then they have SMU in Tulsa, and then Cincinnati, and then Iowa State. So that sets up rather nicely to me. A lot of these teams are teams that you should beat, probably by a couple of scores. Cincinnati is rebuilding. And Iowa State was a team that Oklahoma beat last year. And Iowa State's also going through some off-season turmoil as well that could probably affect their performance. So you could easily see Oklahoma being 5-0 going into the Texas game. And if somehow they can pull the upset against Texas, and they're 5-0 at the time, it may not be considered an upset. Texas may have lost a game or two by then. That would be huge. Because then they would play Central Florida and Kansas and Oklahoma State, West Virginia, BYU, and TCU. They could beat all those teams. BYU would probably be a boogaboo. You got to go to BYU, and as you saw with Florida, who went to Utah, that elevation is a real thing. Now, TCU went 4-8. Was it 5-7? I think it was 4-8 or 5-7 last year. And they had a schedule sort of similar to what Oklahoma's got this year. And it set them up for a nice little run. And they went all the way to the national championship game. They didn't just make the playoffs. They did win a playoff game. And people forget that because they got their doors blown off by Georgia in the national championship game. Sort of took away all the goodwill that they had built up from making that playoff appearance. But I think Oklahoma could make that kind of run. They may not get in the playoffs this year, but I think they could be in the conversation for the playoffs well into late October and early November with the kind of schedule they got. And these games set up well for Oklahoma as far as getting these new recruits in here and getting them some valuable reps and playing time. You can get Jackson Arnold under center and help him immensely. You get 3 weeks of good repetition going forward. If something happens to Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Arnold will be ready. Last year they didn't have that. See, that's another thing. People are like, well, last year they did the same thing. They started off strong, and then Dylan Gabriel got injured, and boom, shakalaka, they lost a bunch of games. Yeah, but they didn't have Jackson Arnold last year either. So this year's a little bit different. You got Jackson Arnold waiting in the wings, a guy that's considered to probably be one of the best quarterbacks that Oklahoma's ever recruited. We will see about that. I mean, that still remains to be seen, but they got it pretty well set up this year where they got some depth that if something does happen, they can get valuable reps with these games leading up to the Texas game. So I think that Oklahoma could definitely be in the conversation into early November if things break right. Now, the other thing I want to talk about before I get out of here is I read a story about Oklahoma and their NIL setup that they have through Sports Illustrated. Was talking about the fact that their preferred walk-ons, I think I have that terminology right, they are actually given a sweet little NIL deal that was set up by the Oklahoma Athletic Department and Brent Venables. Pretty smart. I mean, they can get these guys on campus as a preferred walk-on and give them a special NIL deal that's not an infraction. At least I don't think it is. The NCAA can come in at any time and just make a random rule up and pull it out of their ass, because that's what they do. But it's very inventive, very, very original. I'm very impressed. That's why I'm so high on Brent Venables and Joe Castiglione. And going forward with this NIL deal, it doesn't count against your scholarships. You got 85 scholarships, and so they're limited in what they can do as far as scholarship players. And if it's somebody they really want, but they just ain't quite got the scholarships to do it, but that player really, really badly wants to play for Oklahoma, but you don't have the scholarship for him, you can give him the preferred walk-on NIL deal. That's pretty damn inventive. I think Nick Saban in Alabama, my team, need to sort of cash in on that a little bit as well. Nick Saban probably loved that. He's probably already seen, he's probably going to take it and run with it as well. And that's why I think for years to come, you could see Oklahoma and Alabama and Georgia and teams like that battling it out for recruiting supremacy. But that's all I got to say about that today. There's a little heart down here. If you don't mind, you can throw a one-time donation into the coffers there. Also, I have a Cash App that's money sign JPC316. I'll drop that in the description of this video. Then there's that Outlaw Posse, as I said before. It's not but $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. You can get your badge, get deputized. You can get your random Four Horsemen shout out. And as I said, I'm going to add a perk where the badged comment of the week or the badged comment of the day will be screenshotted and read out on this program. Go like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.